Hello, everyone. This is Cami.
And this is Steph. This is the War Dolls Podcast.
On today's episode, we discuss Adepticon and streaming with our special guest, Jamie Daggers, as well as our normal interrogation of our guest. So let's get right into it.
Jamie, thank you so much for joining us.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, I just saw a post today where you were using a card from the game Hues and Cues to paint those four colors onto a model. Will you tell us more about that?
I would love to, actually. It's hard to get me to not talk about this nowadays. So the four color challenge, as it's come to be known, was something I kind of started doing on a whim as a co-stream with my friend Holy Fire Them a couple years ago, and we gave each other random palettes to pick from, four colors limited, and we just went to town on a couple of Relic Blade minis, and we were having a blast with it. And so the following week, I was like, that was really fun. What if we do that? And I have chat pick my colors. And that's kind of where it started. And since then, it's become a cornerstone of my stream. It's something we do every Friday on stream, where I have chat pick four colors. We paint the entire mini using only those four colors. It results every single time in just something really interesting happening. Colors you would never expect to make a cohesive palette work out. And over time, I realized that there's a lot of lessons in that process. So I started writing it down, considering it a little more. And now it's a class I teach at cons. There's a lot of background knowledge that's happening while you're doing it.
That's really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So if you flash forward to Gen Con of this year, I was talking with a dear friend of mine, Ray, who works for the publishers of Hues and Cues.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, I'm like, those Hues and Cues cards have four colors on them. Like, everybody was talking about the Color Cube at the time, which is like that graphic design tool that people were buying. Pretty expensive, yep. But I was like, Hues and Cues is like $15-$20,
Right.
People have their own color cube right there,
Yeah.
Even if you don't play the game, which is a fabulous game. Even if you don't play the game, you got your own color cube right there. So Ray was talking to me, and she's like, do you want to record, a video of you doing it? I'm like, boy, do I. So she recorded it and posted it actually today, funny enough. And it's been doing pretty well. So it's exciting to see people starting to hear a little bit more about the four color challenge, because it's something I've been wanting everybody to try.
That's so cool. Like, I picked up that game at Origins a couple years ago, and I now have another use for that game besides playing it with my family, and I'm super excited to try that.
That's my favorite part about it too, because I've been working in the board game industry for 5 or 6 years now in various capacities, and one thing I know a lot of publishers and designers have problems with is re-energizing their audience into playing their games again or using it for something else. And I thought this is just such a great way to engage with it, because as a board gamer, that those also come with a ton of minis, and mini painting isn't as big of a cultural thing in the board game space. So trying to bring those two communities together and encourage more people to paint minis all in one go is really my goal.
That's so cool.
I love that. All right, and you did mention your game. You just published one. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, so that one was actually it started with a one-page game jam on Itch, where the challenge was put out to make an RPG adjacent game, but only make it one page front and back. And so I was kind of looking at previous entries and seeing that people were making, entire light RPGs on their pages. And I had this idea to make something that was RPG adjacent. So I kind of dreamed up the idea of it being kind of a crafting simulator, like you would do in an MMO or something. So you're trying to complete an objective as something that could be a little side game you could play while someone else is doing something in a quest in D&D or something that you're not a part of, just to kind of keep you busy. And I created it so that it's pass fail, so that if you succeed, you can craft the thing that you were working on in your RPG, or as long as your DM's okay with it. And it kind of led me to start thinking about other crafting style games that I could create in the same vein. And so the goal is to make a couple more of them and kind of create a suite of different crafting games with different mechanics and different play styles and things like that that you can just slot into any RPG as a crafting simulator. The game is called Blacksmith, like blacksmith without a B. And it's actually available on my itch for free for pay what you want. So like it's also accessible. I have printouts always with me at cons too, so I like to hand it out there. But that was kind of where, like, I've already been developing another game that I'm publishing this year called Siren's Watch, and it's been kind of in a development limbo right now. So I was like, I want to keep my instincts sharp, so I want to like start developing other stuff on the side, and that's kind of where that came in. So
That's really great. I am thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, that's super cool. I If you
thank you.
have stuff with you, are you going to Adepticon this year?
I will be at Adepticon. Yep.
Awesome. So I assume you're going to bring stuff for that with you.
Yes, I will have that. I will be more than likely demoing Siren's Watch at the Black Site Studios booth. And
Okay.
then I also have been working on a tabletop skirmish game called Lictor that will be putting out a quick start zine for through the Black Site booth as well. So it'll be a little teaser, a little taster for that game that people can take home with them. So we'll be demoing that there as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll be at Adepticon as well, so I'll definitely have to check that out.
Oh, please do. Yeah, we'll have all sorts of stickers and like fun giveaways and stuff like that too. We're doing a kit bash competition for Lictor as well.
Awesome. What other conventions do you enjoy attending?
So typically, my core conventions that I go to tend to be Adepticon and then Origins, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged. And then occasionally, most years I've gone to Nova as well. I've been meaning to make it down to ReaperCon. We'll see what happens. But last year, I think I went to 10 or 12 conventions total, and it was a
Wow.
lot. So
That's pretty impressive.
it's quite a bit.
That's
I'm
insane.
reeling it back a little bit this year with all the dev stuff I'm doing. I've even had to back off of like painting competitions, which has been my bread and butter for the past 2 years.
Hmm.
So it's all game design now.
That's really great.
That's really cool, though.
Well, and teaching at cons, I also teach painting at cons, so that's like kind of the reason I go to most of the time. If I'm not demoing, I'm teaching. So it's still a work
Okay.
trip, but it's always great. Like such a good opportunity to see my friends and spend time with people and get to meet folks. Like doing the streaming thing is wonderful and fun, but working by yourself in an office all day, doing something that's like social but not really social is it's quite a
Yeah.
challenge. So
Yeah.
getting to see people in the meet space is always a treat.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have a question for you. As far as Origins goes, are you planning on doing any classes there?
Yes. So I'll be teaching. Last year I taught 3 different classes, and so I had like 2 sessions of each one. I will probably shoot to do the same thing this year, but I'm going to kind of reduce the range. So I'm going to have as many classes and just teach more of the same class a couple times, I
Gotcha.
think.
Awesome.
Because I've found that like teaching one class twice makes it so that it's fewer people attend because they have
Hmm.
things on those days. So if I teach
Hmm.
one class every day,
Hmm.
one a day basically per class that I'm teaching, I can kind of diversify or kind of shrink down the subject matter, but introduce it in a wider range so that people can actually attend when they have time. So
That's awesome. I'll actually be at Origins this year, so I will definitely keep an eye out for that when it comes time for registration.
oh, please do. That would be wonderful. One of the ones I'm planning on teaching is going to be the 4-color class. So it's not only something I do on my stream on Fridays, but it's also a class I teach, and it's
Perfect.
literally my favorite class to teach.
It sounds so much fun. Like I can't wait to try something like that.
It's really cool because it without fail, like pound for pound, it's the class that people walk out of with the light bulb moment more often than
Hmm.
not, and it's been such a privilege to kind of introduce it to people because I have folks who watch my stream who do it every week. We post the palette that I use on stream so that people can use the same palette if they want to. And then I encourage people to share it in my Discord so we can do kind of a roundup at the end of the month
Hmm.
and share everybody's work. And
That's really cool.
it's just been so cool because I've had countless people say that, like, it's been something that's gotten them into painting again because it's just
Hmm.
so, like, low commitment. It's very like, just
Yeah.
sit down and paint, even if you had a long day after work. You're tired. All you have to do is pick four paints and go at it, and you don't need to think a whole lot. It's really
Yeah.
really nice.
And that's one
So
of my
it's been
biggest
such a
issues
privilege.
when I sit down to paint. Like, I always try to pull up like a reference picture and try to replicate
Mhm.
it. But if I had just four colors to pick from, like, I feel like that, like you said earlier, I think something about the analysis paralysis of it all, of
Yes.
trying to pick what colors you're going to use. Like,
Hmm.
just having those four colors to pick from, like, eliminates all of that, which is so great.
Yep. And the beauty of it is, like, even if you're someone who is a little anxious about picking the quote unquote right color,
Yeah.
part of the reason I do it every Friday is to show people that, like, there really is no right or wrong. You can do a lot with any four colors. Now, obviously,
Hmm.
there's some limitations at times, but I often recommend that you allow yourself a little bit of black and white if you want to shift, like, value or something like that. But typically, the goal is to try to keep it to those four colors. And
Yeah.
if you're not trying to challenge yourself, there are also, like, kind of rules of thumb that I can give to kind of guide that choice that'll make
Hmm.
it more likely to be successful. Um, but yeah, it's just a really fun and, like, easy way to if you're somebody who has a ton of minis at home, and just you don't know what to do with them. Like, it's such a great way to bust up a backlog, because all you have to do is you could find one palette that you really like working with, and there you go. You have four paints. You could do it on a weekend away, and all you have to do is bring four paints in your brush.
That's
So
cool.
Do you know what else would work out really great?
what's that?
If Jamie were to stop into a Thursday night hobby hang and present a four color idea to
Oh,
us.
I would love to do that.
that would
Oh,
be
that would be
so
amazing.
cool.
Okay. All right.
If you stopped by and you're like, here's the four colors, all the war dolls who are on right now need to paint in these four colors and show their work.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be so much fun. Okay. Okay, Jamie, since Jamie's going to be at Adepticon, I'm going to put the invite out now. I am doing a live in-person hobby hang Thursday night of Adepticon at 6 o'clock Central Time, which is our normal 7 o'clock Eastern hobby hang time. So you are more than welcome to come and join us.
I will definitely keep that in mind. I think the Thursday night tends to be the creator meetup. Um, but I mean, even if it's just to swing by, it would be lovely to meet everybody.
I believe the content creator meet and greet is Wednesday this year.
You know what? I think you're right. Now that I think about it, when I registered, I think it is Wednesday. I have a
Yeah,
meetup that I'm doing as well. I'll have to figure out. But now that I know that this is happening, I can plan mine on a different time or something like that. So this is helpful.
Yay.
awesome.
So, but and if that doesn't work, we do hobby hang every Thursday night, 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern, in the War Dolls Discord, which you can find at our Instagram profile. Um, and we get together in voice chat and do whatever hobby we are doing. We have painters, we have video gamers, we have one girl that cross stitches. We do everything, and we chat, and it's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. Sometimes it's just good to connect. We also have uh, you know since most of us are painters there, and we are of varying skill levels and experience and everything, and there's always something to learn,
Yeah,
for everybody. So if you wanted to stop by one night, that would, you know, even if it's not for the four color challenge, it would still be wonderful because I'm sure that there are plenty of people that have questions.
Yeah, I would love to swing by.
I would love that too. So, and of course, we can be found on other platforms at the War Dolls. I think we're on Blue Sky now, Instagram,
yep.
Facebook, under YouTube as well, and under various rocks. Jamie, where can we find you in the great wide internet?
So I can be found pretty much everywhere. under my username Jamie Daggers. I've somehow stumbled upon the like best SEO ever. It's like all me if you search it, which is pretty cool.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
but like I can most often be found haunting the halls of Twitch. I stream 2 to 5 Eastern from Tuesday through Friday, and then I do a Sunday night gaming stream with my best friend as well.
Oh,
Um, and then um, most of the time I'm posting my paint over on Instagram. I try to cross post to Blue Sky now as well, and as always in Discord. So
well, I don't believe I'm in your Discord, so we will have to swap links.
yeah, I would love to.
Okay. What is the hobby or hobbies or game that has you absolutely enthralled right now? Obviously, the four color challenge is a big deal. Is there anything?
Yes,
Are there any other romances going on there?
absolutely.
Mhm.
I like to. I jokingly self-describe on my stream as a full send artist. I really like trying new things. It's a byproduct of ADHD, like severe ADHD.
That
I don't.
that
I
great
can't sit
mistress.
still. Yeah, truly, I can't sit still when it comes to hobbies. Like mini painting is the only thing that has really enraptured me for any period of time. And lately, the new hotness has been lino cut. I've been doing like linoleum cutting,
Oh yeah.
so like block printing essentially, and I've just been deep in it. Every time I can, every moment I have where I'm not painting, I'm trying to do, either drawing something on my iPad that I'm going to then trace and then carve, or I'm carving or I'm printing. And I've just been having a ball with it. It's so much fun.
And you have to
Um,
carve it in reverse.
yes,
It's
exactly.
so crazy.
And
I've
like,
never
just
heard of
because of the
this.
kind, it's so fascinating. It's kind of a offshoot of like woodblock printing,
Hmm.
kind of.
Okay.
And because I am the way I am, like doing it on hard mode, because before mini painting I did no physical art. I am not I'm not a lifelong artist. I was a musician for the longest time.
Okay.
And like that was what I did for the most part. And I picked up mini painting and I never looked back. And so now I'm on like an art kick where I just want to do everything. So I've been teaching myself how to draw. I've been doing lino cut. I've been just doing all sorts of stuff. So that's what's got my attention right now.
That's really cool. How did you discover I'm sorry, lino cut? The
Yes.
I
Honestly, I can't remember the first time I was introduced to it. I made friends with a couple of like professional artists, like people whose job it is to do art, and they have been like sharing inspiration, all these other things, and I started seeing these like really beautiful prints that had these like scratchy kind of style designs to them, and kind of wanted to know more. And I looked into it, and it's not like a surprisingly, compared to most hobbies, it's not a terribly expensive hobby to start. And so I just kind of dove in and kind of figured it out from there.
That's so cool. I honestly this is the first time I've even heard of it. So what's your favorite aspect of that?
I think for me, I struggle with art when it comes to remembering to pull up reference. I also kind of have a bit of aphantasia where I like can't really picture things in my mind very well.
Mhm.
So it seems like reference should be my best friend, and it's always the last thing I think about. With Lino Cut, you have to work from reference. There's no getting around it. Like
Mhm.
the idea of freehanding onto a piece of linoleum and then carving it, it's not impossible, but it's a much less forgiving medium when it comes to making mistakes. And,
Yeah.
like a lot of times you're transferring graphite to the linoleum and then outlining it and then carving it. So, like, you're typically creating a drawing somewhere else, print or kind of stamping it onto the lino cut, and then you're carving it into the linoleum. So it's kind of forced me with my drawing to draw directly from reference or even trace in some cases. And it's just been kind of training my hand a little more.
That's so interesting.
Jamie, has there ever been a moment where you have not been heard in your particular hobby or any hobby because of your voice, your gender presentation?
So I guess in general, when it comes to my voice as a woman, I personally am very privileged to have a platform so my voice is already amplified in a way that I think a lot of women's isn't, like, aren't in this space. I do personally know someone who was participating in I believe it was a Blood Bowl tournament at Adepticon a few years ago. She was the only femme presenting person, in that tournament, and of course received a lot of, like, negative consideration. There was a lot of, like, kind of, I guess, quote unquote mansplaining, like things like that happening to her. And we talked a lot about it at the con because it was a multi-day tournament.
Right.
And the first day she was
Mm-hmm.
even thinking about dropping out just because of how poorly it was going in terms of their reaction to her. And a lot of times it's not the blatant, in your face kind of aggressive approach, it's the ignorant approach that really gets
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
um, it's the
Microaggressions.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a lack of consideration, I think, just due to a lack of interaction, I think, in these spaces. Um, so again, luckily for me, and it's something I take very seriously with the responsibility of having a platform. Like, my voice is heard a lot more than most women's. So I can't summon a moment where I can think of, like, where that definitively happened to me, but certainly, I've heard so much around me that other women are experiencing.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the mansplaining, like I have witnessed that personally so many times, being the only woman to be part of a Star Wars Legion doubles event at Adepticon. So many times do the guys feel like they need to mansplain the rules to me when I have just studied my butt off and I know the rules. It just sometimes takes me a while to put two and two together, but they don't even allow me the time. Like, they feel like they need to tell me what it is I need to do instead of just giving
Hmm.
me the opportunity to figure it out on my own. And
Right.
I totally
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah, I think, again, something that I was lucky to be a part of was, about 2 or 3 years ago. I owned a game store for a year. I bought half of the stock of a local game store.
Oh,
It
wow.
wasn't much. It was just an opportunity to paint and have a store running at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But um, you know, community building there was really unique because not only was I a woman running the store, but I was a trans woman running the store.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, largely the reception was fantastic. And I do think that, like, it speaks volumes about the people that are part of that community. But I think even there, there were situations where it was like, I own the store, I live and breathe this stuff, and still there were moments where, like, my understanding of things was questioned. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's like it happens at all levels, whether you're a player or you, you even own the store that people are playing in, which is unfortunate. It's terrible.
Definitely. I have nothing to add to that because you're just so on point with it.
Thank you.
So, Jamie, what advice do you have for any future Wardalls who might be interested in getting into painting or creating a game or any kind of hobby having to do with miniatures and board games?
So I think the biggest piece of advice that I like to give people when it comes to painting, I'll give you, like, a practical one, and then I'll give you more of, like, a mental game one that I like
Sure.
to talk about. The most practical piece of advice I can give anyone when it comes to starting painting is to find your space in your house, in your apartment. Create a space that you can go to when you're ready to paint. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a space that you can leave up all the time, get a TV tray or something that you can leave your stuff on, that you can move wherever you need to do your painting. Because removing those barriers to entry can really make the difference between actually getting to paint on a day where you're kind of, like, low energy or something like that. If it's already there and it's already out, you're already, like, most of the way there. You just got to pick up the brush. And then the less practical, more mental piece of advice I always tell people is, like, one thing I always hear from people, whether it's students or peers or something like that, is like, "Oh, I'm waiting until I'm better at painting, to paint this particular model." And I, uh, like, never mad about it or anything, but what I want to encourage people to do is to abandon that mindset, because, like, we're always going to be getting better at painting. The time is going to pass anyways. What better way to challenge yourself to rise to the occasion of painting something than to paint something that you've been really looking forward to?
Right.
And like,
Mhm.
it might push you to do something that you haven't tried before. It might be the occasion for you to finally bust out your attempt at non-metallic metal or something like that. If you always wait to paint that model that you've been savoring, you're never going to get to it. It's going to just keep getting pushed back because new hot models are going to come out and you're going to want to paint
Mhm.
those, you know? So um,
Yep.
the best time to do it is now. And like, you can always strip it if you need to, which I honestly don't. I think people go strip crazy. That's a totally different story, but
Hmm.
you can just paint over it. But anyway, yeah, paint that model. Don't wait.
That's yeah, that's so. I always tell people you can almost always strip a model. I haven't tried stripping a 3D printed resin model yet, because that just is a little bit scary. But anything else, yeah, simple green, put it in there a few hours, scrub it with a toothbrush,
Yep.
you're ready to go. I love it.
Hmm.
I love it. To be honest, I have started painting things where I had the mindset where I'm like, well, I'm just gonna have to strip this later. But by the time I'm done, I'm content or even happy with what I've done.
Mhm.
And I don't strip it. So
I, I can't tell you. Again, the four color thing, I'm just going to go back to it.
no,
I
that's
can't tell you how many times, and it happens live on stream every week. I can't tell you how many times I've had a crisis of faith in the middle of a paint job, only for it to kind of come together at a moment's notice. Like
right
something
at the
happens,
end.
something,
Yeah.
you approach it from a different angle, or
Hmm.
even you just stop worrying about it and just keep painting.
Hmm.
It's the dreaded middle, right? It's
Right.
the ugly face,
Ugly
whatever you want to
face.
call
Yeah,
it.
that's what they call it.
um and it's like, that's one thing I love about the four color approach is like, you can almost count on that happening,
Yeah.
and as long as you know it's going to happen, you're less afraid of it when it does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid of the ugly face.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
We all had one in high school anyway, right? So
Right. You also mentioned creating a space, and one of the things that I am proudest of in the last several years is I had gotten it was about 5 years ago. I got a job working at home. They sent me equipment, so my desk space uh, effectively was gone, and I dreaded having to make the decision of packing things away in order to put all my painting stuff out, or just, I didn't know what to do. And one of the things that I've always had, I don't use, I paint differently. I have a slab, basically. It's a wooden board, and I've replaced it since I started. My father gave me a piece of shelving, and I started painting on it, and then he passed away almost 20 years ago, and I realized just how much that meant to me. And he gave it to me so I didn't get paint all over my desk. That was the original intent, and I just kept using it, kept using it, kept using it. And after a while, I had to retire it because it was just covered in paint. So I started a new one, just as that's what I was used to. And at this point, it has gotten to where it's utilitarian. I have glued magnets into it, and I have this little. You laugh. I, I'm gonna have to. We're gonna have to do show and tell tomorrow night on
You
Thursday night,
are. I need to see this.
because I found a little clip-on desk lamp that is one of the best painting lights I have ever had in my life. And it's small, it's portable, it's got a flexible neck, it rolls up. I actually have a portable painting set now, and I throw the board in there, the light goes in there. I have a little plastic cup that I got at Mardi Gras one year. Like, everything's in this little kit, and I lay the board down. The light goes on the magnets. I have a ceramic tile that I use for my palette, and my little paint cup. Everything just folds up, and I can carry it anywhere. I can paint anywhere, and that was really a life-saving device for my painting hobby, because I can go anywhere in the house. I even take it to. I accidentally got a job at a game store, and that's a whole other story. But it's on Sundays, and some they used to be slow, so I would take all my stuff with me and paint, and it made it so much easier because my stuff was already portable. So
Yep.
it's really great finding your space, especially if you have to make it portable is super important. So thank you for that,
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, and
Yeah.
I totally back up on that. So just continuing with the advice theme, is there anything that you wish you had been told when you were younger or just starting out that you know now? Like, what advice would you have given to a younger you?
Outside of the hobby, there's plenty I would have told
Oh
myself.
yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh.
No, I'm just playing. When it comes to the hobby, I think the thing that I always come back to, and this is part of why I now teach this as a class. Um, it started as a joke, being like, "Oh my gosh, I could teach an entire class on thinning paint." People are like, "I would take that class." I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just write a curriculum for it then. And they started that way. Thinning paint, right, is a piece of advice that everybody tells you when you start out, but nobody tells you how. There's not a good language structure
Yeah.
around which to describe when you say, "Oh, we're thin your paints." What does that mean? How thin? What are we talking here? And some people say like, "Oh, you want it to be like skim milk." And it's like that's great for people who have a mental picture of what skim milk looks like,
Right.
but like outside of that, it's such a poor grounding point for that conversation. So I will say I did receive the advice of thin your paint when I was a younger hobbyer. What I wish they did was have a better understanding of how to describe it that way. And so
Yeah.
that's been another little like mission of mine is to like redefine the vocabulary around thinning paint to kind of make it a little more accessible and just honestly most art concepts that people who are not artists are learning by doing the hobby, trying to find ways to make those a little more terrestrial for people so that we're not like making people learn more fine art concepts and terms and things like that in order to just paint a space marine, or
Yes.
something like
Yeah.
Yes.
because certainly there are people who want to do that. I'm one of those people. I love learning about highfalutin art concepts,
Hmm.
but I think that there needs to be a place in which people can just engage with the hobby without having to become like fine artists.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, so thinning your paint is the piece of advice that I wish I got, but
Okay.
the right way.
Right. There. I've noticed that when watching
Mhm.
people interact online and give advice to new people, there is a vocabulary gap because
Yeah.
things that are muscle memory to us, just
Hmm.
second hand. When we say things like thin your paint or dry brush or d- these concepts are things that we learned at some point,
Mhm.
and we take them as granted, as commonplace.
Hmm.
So we forget very often that these new people have to learn it too.
Hmm.
Yep. So, Jamie, what other projects or games are you interested in picking up?
So lately, I admittedly don't play as much as I paint. I paint pretty much exclusively, not out of a lack of desire to play games. It's just
Hmm.
the time and the commitments therein. But like lately, I've been like in a perfect world. I've been really wanting to pick up Spearhead and the new Kill Team. I've heard is really good. Um, I'm not like a diehard GW fan. I tend to really like indie games more than anything.
Okay.
But it's hard to find communities around those. So,
Yeah.
but I also find that like playing a lot of games makes me a better designer. So I like to kind of diversify as much as I can. Um, I would say that like the one thing I have played in recent memory where I actually like made an attempt to go out and do it is Mordheim.
I
I had
love
fun,
Nerdheim.
a lot of fun with Mordheim. Super fun, and I love kit bashing. I love painting, so it was like the perfect hobby for me. Is like I could just do Mordheim and I would be happy. I think so.
We just started a Necromunda league here, a campaign rather, here locally. But yeah, I play when I was gaming and living in Georgia. There was a store there. We had somebody introduced me to Mordheim, and it was one of the most fun campaigns. Because I do love campaigns that are miniature in nature, like miniature game campaigns. That
Mhm.
Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is one of my core memories.
I adore Blood
Oh,
Bowl.
Blood
As
Bowl's.
in my opinion, GW's best game they've ever made.
You were not the first person I've heard say that.
I love the whimsy of that game. Everything about actually literally working on a gnome Blood Bowl team. Um,
Oh, that's
I'm in the
right.
middle of
They're
like
brand new, aren't
doing that as a
they?
personal project.
I have to plug my favorite campaign game,
Of course.
Star Wars Imperial Assault.
Ooh, yeah.
I did not know
I've
that
heard
I
was
so many good things
campaign.
about it.
I love that game. We love playing the campaign cooperatively with the app with our friends. It like the app plays as the bad guy, so everyone else gets to play as the heroes and do it cooperatively, and it's so much fun.
That's
We'd
super
make
cool.
we'd take entire weekends and just play 18 to 20 hours straight. Like it's so much
I
fun.
love that.
That's really neat. I didn't realize that was campaign based.
Yeah, it's not, obviously FFG isn't making new content for that game anymore.
Right.
But there's still the app that you can do, cooperative things with,
Hmm.
or you can follow along in the book and have someone play as the Imperial player and the rest of the players be the heroes. Um, but we enjoy it with the app so much and just make it fully cooperative.
Is there a lot of community support for it? Like
There's a
custom
little
stuff?
bit. Yeah, so there's actually an entire community around it. It's the Imperial Assault Continuity Project, IACP, and they actually do an event at Adepticon where they have continued to create content for the game outside of FFG. It's literally just like fan created content.
Okay. Because
Um
I know
and
more time's been out of print for a long, long time.
so
Um,
it's probably a similar thing where
yeah.
someone out there is continuing to make content and play test it and put that out for people that just love the game.
I love a fan made project like that. It's kind
Yeah.
of what happened with the More Time IP. It's
Yeah.
just so fun to see passionate people pick up a game and like
Hmm.
run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fan made supplement. I think Border Town Burning for more time. I didn't even realize that was fan made. It was so well done. Um, I played an entire campaign as the Merchant Guild or Merchant Caravan, and had no idea that until much much later that it was produced by fans. So great, so great, good stuff, good
I
stuff.
think I think that's such a huge like testimonial for how accessible it can actually be to make games. The
Yeah.
games that we're playing kind of teach us the scaffolding for like what makes for a good game. And like my design process is experiential. I take all of my favorite things from other games that I've played and I try to find a way to turn those into mechanics that we can use on the
Mm-hmm.
tabletop. For
Yeah.
example, Sirens Watch, the game that I'm publishing this year, is very, very heavily inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics and like grid-based strategy games like that. Those were like some of my favorite games growing up and remain so to this day. And I was like, how do I get that onto the tabletop?
Yeah.
And so like playing games, not everybody's going to be a game designer from playing games, but like if you have aspirations of game design, like we were talking about with art, pulling those as reference can be just a great way to like test your strengths and see where your instincts can kind of carry you until you start to learn more.
So that, yeah, inspiration is huge, huge, big deal.
Yeah.
So what about motivation? What motivates you to do any of your hobbying, or if you're not in the mood, is there anything that you can do to find that motivation?
The unfortunate but also like very very again privileged answer to that is like money is what's motivating me most of the time
Okay.
because that's how I pay my bills, right, is doing what I
Right.
do. But if we're looking at it strictly from the perspective of my hobby, because I do look at my hobby as separate from my painting work, I look at my painting work as my day job, and my hobby is something I do for myself, and something that, like the Blood Bowl team I was mentioning.
Okay.
Um, and boy, is it difficult to motivate myself to do that. Because it's like if I were a 5-star chef or something like that, I wouldn't want to go home and cook myself a 7-course meal.
Right.
Correct.
Not to oversell like my talents, like making a blatant reference like that. But the point is, painting all day and then being like, oh, I'm going to paint all night now, is something I've done, and like it goes in phases. It's not sustainable, so it's like not something I really like hang my hat on when it comes to getting things done. But without fail, something that always motivates me is, like you mentioned, like a campaign, or a game that I'm playing with friends. Like getting something painted for the game eliminates that, like that little like gremlin in my head that's like, oh, this has to be perfect, because if you don't have beautiful minis on the tabletop, people are going to judge the fact that you're a professional painter or something like that.
Right.
um, no one would do that in reality, but nevertheless. And then also revealing that I don't really play games, so to be honest with you, a lot of my stuff doesn't get painted. I think that's a big part of where the 4-color thing comes in, and admittedly something I started on my Discord called the Brush Zerkers League, which is something that we've kind of collectively done as a community. It is I describe it as an escalation league, but it's for painting. So we are collectively making our own individual goals and pledging those goals at the beginning of kind of a leg of the journey, usually a 2-week span. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we just kind of do a quick update in the Discord as to where we are along that pledge. There's no penalty for not finishing. There's no, it's very, very self-led, but the structure is provided for you. So it's like, okay, this is the period at which we're starting this phase. It's going to end on this date. Choose a chunk of your project and tell us all about it, and then go do it. And so I find even that little bit of accountability, even if it's not for a game or for a specific end goal, can be all you need to, like, oh, there's other people that know about this goal, and they're kind of counting on me to get it done. And so that can be a really great way to build that accountability and that motivation.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you have a streamer or podcast show that you really enjoy listening to right now?
Lately, the big thing that I've been doing when it comes to productivity has been body doubling. So I have a friend who works from home as well, and she and I will just kind of sit in a call all day, even if we're not talking. Just having another person there can be like enough to
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep you going. And I feel like I get so much done doing that, but it does limit the amount of like listening that I can do, when it comes to podcasts or streams. But I would be remiss not to mention so many other talented and wonderful other streamers on the platform that I am proud to call my friends. There are people like Spark Minis, who you've spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
Good friend Chimera Paints Minis. Holy Fire them. Just a bunch of wonderful streamers on the platform that like are there at all times of the day. I'm pretty sure I could go on Twitch at any point in a 24-hour period and find one of my friends who's painting minis. It's such a cool and like golden age of miniatures. And it's like not always painting. Sometimes there's people talking about lore, or running through the rule books and stuff like that. And there's more and more popping up every day. So like there's always somebody that you can talk to. And if all else fails, there's YouTube as well. So
That's really cool. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
yeah, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, we're definitely glad you came.
Yeah, this was
I
so
was glad to
much
be here.
fun, and we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, once again, I really appreciate you inviting me.
Everybody go look for Jamie Daggers anywhere the internet is sold. Um, and don't forget to look for the War Dolls. Pretty easy to find. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Jamie, for joining me on the War Dolls podcast.
Thank you, Cami.
Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. And we will yap at you next time.